There are certain images that stay in our consciousness across the world. And these paintings, they're blurred images of really devastating realities of our world right now. And the contradictions and the complexities in all those dynamics, and even the polarities of right and left, are part of this kind of what I think I'm trying to investigate in these paintings. You know, despite any form of effort of annihilation or dehumanization of people and culture, the culture has kind of found a way, and people have found a way to maintain some form of the spirit and drive of what makes us continue and makes us invent. And I think it's in that space of invention and imagination that new possibilities can emerge and arise. And that's what I hope for in the work. When we started to see blurred imagery come into the work, that was a whole new development that we had to figure out how to paint that. So that happens in the studio. And really the invention is together.
There's two basic ways that we started painting before Julie, her hand comes into it. It's either through silkscreen or through airbrushing these blurred images that she's manipulated through the computer and outputs for me to basically replicate in whatever scale she's working at. So that's where I really get to participate. And then Julie takes over and adds her mark making, all the energy, all the dynamism, all the action to the paintings.
I don't necessarily know when it's time to make the first mark or when it's time to make the last mark, but it's something that comes slowly. I usually look at a painting for a long time before I start working on it, and then usually something summons me up to the painting to start. And usually the first 5 or something, I start erasing as soon as I start making it. So it's really a process of like getting really lost in the intuitive making of the painting, and then through that, trying to make sense of what I made, and then going back into that space. When we wanted to start working on the trans paintings, it took a couple years, 3 years, with experimenting with material and what kind of supports, what kind of fabric work. And it took us a long time to get there. And then was able to work with, and luckily collaborate with Nairi Bagramian in doing a sculptural kind of support for these structures, because I really wanted them to be freestanding. You could experience from both sides. They become this kind of animatronic sculptural thing that's standing there. I'm super excited when I see the room filled with people and I see the shadows moving through the paintings. They're very slight. They kind of affect how you're experiencing the painting. So if a room has 12 people in it, it's a very different experience than if you're in here by yourself. I think there's something in these paintings that is very haunting, and that to me feels like the echoes of many ancestors in a way, many parts of the past. The scale allows for one to become fully immersed in the painting from when you're up close, and then to have this very different experience of it from a distance, and what happens in those indeterminate space in that. I try to make sense of why it was always in abstraction that I felt most compelled to work. I feel like abstraction is, in a sense, what chose me, but I think there's this liberation and possibility in what we don't have language for, and especially if you're looking at abstract paintings. You pull your own personal history into that. There's no directive. There's this space of radicality. There's this space of possibility, and there's this space of opacity. No one has to explain who they are. And I think that's really important for me in abstraction, is that there's no idea of representing oneself. It's really this exploration of what might be, what can be, and what exists in this space of like invention that's outside of what the world is, in a sense. I mean, I have a dream of a particular world, but I don't know that that's what's so important as finding a place of liberty, possibility, and a real place of kind of vitality and health. And how do we build that for our communities? How do we protect each other? How do we protect our trans kids, our queer brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters, our mixed communities? And how do we like really look after one another rather than individually over everybody else?